And this is Ken Kreitzer for CBSI Services, broadcasting today from the headquarters of CBSI Services in Harrison, New York. And very pleased to have with us, joining us in the office today, Tim Askew, who is executive of Corporate Rain, based in New Rochelle, New York, and a frequent contributor to Inc. magazine. Tim, good to see you.
Thanks, Ken. Good to see you again.
Great to see you as always. And Tim, first off, we got to talk a little bit about the economy and the indicators I always followed from having worked on Wall Street at one time is the Dow hit an all-time high, yes, 18,300, and some of the other indicators are at all-time highs. Is that a good indicator, or is it somewhat misleading, do you think?
I think it's misleading because if you look at the valuations of stocks, the PEs are like 24, something like that. The average over the years has been 13. Also, their profitability is going down. I think what is happening, you can watch CNBC and have more experts than me, but I think what's happening is it's a very erratic economic environment right now, and I think people are basically buying the cleanest dirty shirt, which is the U.S. economy, which is not good. It's better than every other economy that's going in the world right now, and I think people are looking for a safe haven here, and I think that's where some of it's coming from. And but in terms of valuations, I think it's way out of line. But again, that's not my expertise. My expertise is small business and entrepreneurship. But I'm very distrustful of those new highs in the market personally.
Okay, we were talking a little bit about the big news coming out of the United Kingdom, their vote to leave the European Union, and a lot of discussion on the impact on business in the UK and other countries. What do you see happening there? I know you mentioned it has an impact on entrepreneurs and smaller businesses.
Well, I think it will. It hasn't yet. That's going to be a very slow-moving evolution out of the EU. But I wrote about it in Inc. magazine last week. I write a weekly column for them, like you said, and I wrote about Brexit last week, and it was it got a lot of attention. What I think is going to happen is going to be very good for entrepreneurship and small business in Europe because basically they've overregulated Europe. It's a danger that may happen to us too. And when you load up so many things, you can't fire people, you can't really there're just so many, you can't move your company, you can't adjustment, you can't be nimble, and that's just absolutely, you can't be really creative. It's almost legislates a stagnancy, an imaginative business stagnancy, as well as a just inability to create the new. One of the things I cited an example of this company in Italy that it's like a $4 million company. They do, I don't know, some little part, some tool and die type thing. I don't remember what it was, but this guy wasn't allowed to move his company. He needed to move it out of there because the taxes were too high and the regulation was just overwhelming. He couldn't make the improvements he needed. He couldn't fire anybody. So what he did, this is individually in Italy, but it's endemic of the whole situation in Europe. They take long vacations in Europe, and so his employees went off one night. That evening, he took apart his whole factory. He had trucks lined up, and he moved it overnight to Poland. And I think that's the way. And he'd lost money since 2008. This Italian guy, he didn't want to leave Italy, didn't move but he had to. And this is when you make it impossible to do business, and particularly when you have a group of unelected oligarchs like they have in Europe. There are over 40,000 of these very highly paid people who are not elected by anybody, and they they create the rules. They've never been in business. They don't understand what makes business. And it's but anyway, you asked me about Brexit. The reason I think Brexit is going to be good for entrepreneurs and maybe revive entrepreneurship in Europe is that they're going to feel threatened by the loss of Britain. It's going to affect their economies, and Britain has a much freer. They've never totally gone into the EU in the first place, and they have their own money system and everything. And so there's a lot more freedom in England, and that's one reason why it's a booming economy relative to the rest of Europe. With them gone, I think it's going to put pressure on these kind of status quo non-elected bureaucrats to make some practical adjustments that allow for growth of small business. I mean, what, 60, 70, 80% of new U.S. employment comes out of small business and entrepreneurship. And I don't know exactly what the exact figure is, but it's something like it's a huge amount of U.S. employment, particularly new employment, new jobs. Anyway, and I think it's going to put pressure on them to finally just be practical about this, and Brexit could be very good for entrepreneurship in that sense in Europe, where people aren't forced to leave or shut down because the rules are so onerous. That's why I think it might be a good thing, as much fear as it arouses in terms of just big change.
And at home, certainly this year it's dominated by news of the election and sadly these tragic events, these events like happened in Dallas last week that seem to be happening all too frequently. What are some of the thoughts, some of the opportunities you see this year in the balance of 2016 for entrepreneurs?
I'd be very cautious if I was an entrepreneur right now. Entrepreneurship it's a dirty little secret, it's been declining significantly for the last 6 years. And, you don't think of it that way because it's so glorified. It's such a kind of hot thing in the news to talk about Shark Tank and all these kind of heroes of business on Shark Tank. And is followed popularly, but it gives the impression that entrepreneurship is booming, and actually it isn't. And particularly millennials have a problem. They have a lot of problems for the young entrepreneurs. It's the weakest part of entrepreneurship. The biggest section of the demographic, what do you call it, pattern of the new entrepreneur is someone between 50 and 65. That's the largest group of people who are forming businesses right now. And particularly young entrepreneurs, millennials, they're coming out one with a ton of debt. I mean, I don't know. I think that it's well over $1 trillion that these people have, and most people bootstrap their start. And if you have all this debt, it just limits your ability to take risk. In addition, it's hard to get started. I mean, I don't think big companies mind it so much, but we have some of the same problems that Europe does, in that we're overregulated. It's all with good intent to control bad things happening and stuff like that. But when you layer things more and more and more on of control, it takes away the freedom to invent, and you spend a ton of money complying with this stuff, and it's making it much harder to be a creative businessman, and I think particularly for the young millennials. So I think I'm actually fairly pessimistic about entrepreneurship right now, and I love entrepreneurship. It's been a great personal, spiritual solution to my life, as well as a place of financial growth for me, but I don't think people are taking into account how all this, particularly since 2008, there's just been a ton of regulation, and the banks and people taking advantage of it has had some effect. But what they've done is they've overreacted to that, and I think it's a conundrum and a problem for the future of business, even in this country.
Absolutely, and we see one of the areas that we spend some time on is looking at retail and how much retail growth is shifting online to platforms such as Amazon. Walmart announced that they're growing to the detriment of organizations like Sears, who I actually worked for back in my Dean Witter Reynolds days in the '80s, our parent company. And others. How do you see some of the areas like retail? Are the big platforms like Amazon or Walmart an asset, or are they just kind of limiting the field for standalones?
Well, they're certainly limiting standalones right now. I mean, brick and mortars are not doing well, from Macy's to Sears to almost anyone you can name. They're all losing business to the online. So I don't know if that's good or bad long term. I mean, some of it is capitalist, creative destruction, as things change and progress. I mean, we don't have buggy whips anymore. It was a big business at one point. But cars kind of took care of that. And, it could be that retail stores or brick and mortar companies are going to become the buggy whip of and victim of the I generation, as it were.
Yeah, we had someone describe the importance for local retail to create experiences and know their customers so well that the customer keeps coming back in.
Yeah, I think that's what they have to do. They have to create service. Even that's the one way you can differentiate yourself. I mean, the biggest box you can get into as a businessman is become a commodity. You have to have something that's different, something that's why people should choose you, and I think that is what they have to offer, which is a customer experience, and they're going to have to invest in it and developing reputation. Even online, the people like Zappos and stuff who emphasize courtesy and just decency to their clients. Yes, we'll help you, and who answer phone calls. These are things as simple as that are going to become more and more important differentiators. That is the one way I think that they can at least survive. But it doesn't look good for them. It doesn't seem to me. I mean, as I said, my prime experience is with small business. But I think those companies like Sears and Macy's, Lord & Taylor, whatever, are in trouble.
And Tim Askew, CEO at Corporate Rain. Tell us a little bit about your company and some of the services that you're providing to your clients.
Well, Corporate Rain's the elite national company specializing in high-end new business initiation. People hire us to do a sale into CEOs, senior VPs, CIOs, C-suite and senior VP type decision makers, real decision makers. And so it's a kind of a micro niche that we've kind of been recognized as the top dog in for about 20 years. So that's what we do. It's also something that's hard to automatize. Is that the word? Automatize? Because it really has to be done on a personal basis. And a lot of our success is exactly what I was talking about too, is just based on courtesy and decency and caring about people, even more than selling, and telling the truth. And over time that builds, people know when you're telling the truth. And it sounds kind of naive, but I think that's the best. It's a selfish way to be. To be good is selfish. That's my point of view, because it builds success in the long term.
Well, Tim Askew, great to see you, and we'll look for your columns in Inc. magazine. What are you thinking about for your upcoming months?
Oh, well, I just wrote one about the importance of taking time off to be lazy, and to look at walls in your vacation, not to be so. I mean, it's nothing novel particularly, but I just and how hard it is to do that as an owner, because there's always a million things to do, and and really leaving behind your contraptions, and really take vacations, and let your mind catch up with you. I mean, people like Bill Gates go off and where they can't be reached for, I think, at least 2 weeks every summer, and with no agenda at all, just to read books and stare at walls. I believe in staring at walls.
Well, I loved reading books on vacation, and who said that was the president of the University of Notre Dame, Father Hesburgh, said that he'd go on Christmas vacation, he'd go off with some friends, and they'd play cards and read books all for a week or two.
Sounds like heaven to me. Unfortunately, the women I've been with have always wanted to be very active. I mean, I would, give me a stack of books, and I'm perfectly content.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I do that too on vacation. Love to sit down and read a couple of good books. Tim Askew, thank you for stopping by here at the headquarters of CBSI Services in Harrison, New York. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again, Ken.
Enjoy the summer. And it's Ken Kreitzer for CBSI Services. We'll have more editions. Just follow us on LinkedIn. And also, you can reach me on Twitter at Ken Kreitzer. So from CBSI Services, have a great summer. We'll talk to you soon. This is Ken Kreitzer.